Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So today I wanted to talk about a book that I have recently finished. I kind of debated doing any individual book discussion on it just because I ultimately gave this book like a 2.5 stars, so it's very like middle of the road, but I had feelings about it, so I wanted to talk about it. So the book I will be discussing today is Oona Out of Order, and the author is Margarita Montimore. This is a literary fiction book. Well, it has magical realism in it. So I read it for a fiction book club, but I liked that magical realism element. I was super interested in this book before I started because it has a really great premise. And that premise is that Oona, our main character, is living her life out of order. Every year, her consciousness ages sequentially one more year, but her consciousness jumps to a different year of her own life, and she lives that year like in that age body. So I was like, this sounds super cool. And the premise was great, and the book started off strong. We start off the book and Oona is 18. It's 1982. She's got some big decisions ahead of her. You know, does she go on tour with her boyfriend who's her first love, who she loves, and they sort of are maybe starting to have some success, or does she kind of follow her best friend and go to school, which is sort of a more responsible decision. And also it's in London, so that's exciting too. Her birthday is January 1st, so it is counting down. They're having a New Year's Eve / birthday party, and she kind of blacks out, you know, when the ball drops. And when she wakes up, she's not 19 and in the basement of this party, you know, of this house. She is in the year 2015, and she's in her 51-year-old self's body. Her brain like doesn't have any of the memories of the intervening years. Like for her, it's only been like a minute. So she sort of understandably freaks out, and the person who's there to help her is her PA, and he is not helpful at all despite being in the know as to what's happened to her and what is happening. So here's where my frustrations with this book come into play. I'm fine with the premise that Oona is jumping and living her life out of order, and I'm fine with the understanding that like she can't control it, she can't predict it, and she doesn't understand why it's happening. I'm fine with all of that. That's fine. The problem is that when she gets to whatever year, she has not lived the year before that, and so or yet, and so she's frequently left a letter by her future wiser self, who will eventually live through that year, and leave her letter to be like, hey, here's what you can expect this year. And those letters are not helpful at all. Like, my biggest problem with this book is that Oona just made terrible decisions and was not likable. And she just like was not smart about this ability or how she was living her life. And on the one hand, yes, that was sort of understandable because she was mentally only 19, 20, 21. Like, she was still young, she was still figuring things out. And this is understandably a condition that she could not have prepared for. But these letters that her like older, wiser self is leaving her are terrible. They don't help her. They don't answer her questions. They just give her a few basic rules, and then they say, oh, no spoilers. Wouldn't want your life to be unexciting. I'm like, it's already exciting enough. So I was really frustrated that she never got help from herself, even though her older self would have already lived through these years and would have really known like exactly what, maybe not warn Oona about everything, but like I think there was a way to avoid the major problems and heartaches, and she just, and like future older wiser Oona failed current Oona. And then also it just was like not the tone of the book that I was expecting. With this sort of cartoonish cover, I thought it was going to be a bit more lighthearted and funny, and it really wasn't. It was like kind of, I wouldn't say the whole book was depressing, but the whole book was definitely more serious and like had darker undertones, because Oona spends her whole first year, her first leap in 2015. So yes, she has better technology and she kind of does show a little bit of curiosity in using the internet, but like she basically spends that whole year moping and thinking that maybe this isn't real, or maybe this is like a one-time thing, that she'll jump back to 1983. She's just pining over this life that she's lost. She doesn't try to find out any information about her life because she hasn't kept any sort of journals, and her mom and her PA are like the only two people who know what is happening to her. So she just spends that whole year being depressed. And then her second leap, she jumps back and it's 1991. So she's 27. And when she jumps, her body is under drug influence, both drugs and alcohol. And so she's like completely disoriented, not sure what year it is. She goes and has sex immediately with some random dude who's like, here, take some coke. And she's like, cool. And so she just like messes everything up. Past Oona left her a under the influence body and also like a post-it note in her pocket that she hopefully finds. And I'm like, but Oona would know that she doesn't find the post-it note, and therefore she like messes up her relationship. Like, it's just, there were so many opportunities of cool time travel, like paradox or time travel discussions, or interesting ideas about like fate and choosing your own destiny, and all of those options were missed. And so I didn't like the choices Oona was making. I felt like she was kind of stupid the entire time. And there were huge sort of plot holes of logic. Like later in the book, Oona finds out something about one of the other characters. And then she like on her next jump, she does that at the start of one of her jumps. And she just like makes these terrible decisions. But like the logic behind that decision that had been made, early in the 80s, that has now rippled throughout the rest of her life. Like, it doesn't make any sense why she made that decision, because she found out about it pretty early in all of her leaps. So she would have like gone into the year where she needed to make that decision with like the knowledge she needed. So it doesn't make any sense as to like why she would have made that decision anyway. And so just, I was frustrated. I didn't like Oona. I felt like she was stupid. Her future older wiser self did not help her at all. The other people in her life were like, well, I have to respect your wishes. And she kind of points out at one point, she's like, why is future Oona's wishes like more important than my current wishes? And her mom's just like, well, that's the way it is. And I was like, this is so frustrating. So ultimately, I wish there would have been better through lines. I wish that Oona would have been more likable. I feel like a lot of the point of this book was that she was experiencing major life events, like kind of like something big happened in almost every year that she jumped to, and it was just kind of a flop. And so ultimately I did think that the writing was interesting, but like the actual content was the problem. So I only gave Oona Out of Order 2.5 stars, and I felt like everyone else in my book club kind of felt similarly to me, and that it was just kind of a middle of the road meh read. So if any of the premise stuff sounds interesting to you, I'm not trying to drag this or rant about it. I just had a lot of feelings about it because I like time travel twisty stuff, and I was just overall kind of frustrated with this book and these main characters. So if you have read this book or have any comments about time travel, or have awesome kind of time travel memory books where something like this is also manipulated, where time is manipulated or someone's life is manipulated. I loved like Time Traveler's Wife, for example. Leave those down in the comments. I'd really appreciate any suggestions that you have. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.